lecture on the topic, Got to Reboot, Perspectives on Globalization from Below based on COVID-19 pandemic. So before starting the session, before starting the talk, I would like to inform the participants that in case they have any kind of question or query, they can type their questions and queries on chat box, and once the talk is over, we will take their questions for discussion. And it is important to note that only the relevant questions which are related to the topic of discussion will be addressed. So now I will request our speaker, Professor Sachidanand Sinha, to kindly talk to the issue. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bhashwati. Thanks for inviting me, DCB College. Bhashwati, I'm seeing you after a long time.
Yes, sir.
And of course, all the participants. I believe, I'll be in a position to give some perspective to this global crisis, which has been created, which is being presented as to have been created because of COVID-19. Yes, we are into a serious crisis, and the crisis are manifold. It is not just medical crisis or what we can call it, biomedical issues, but the crisis which in fact has arisen as a consequence of this COVID-19, which in fact points towards several other issues as well. Had we done enough on those several issues, perhaps this COVID pandemic could have been of a much different kind. What is the problem? Where is the problem? I'm not going to talk about COVID-19. I'm not a person from the medical school, so I know very little about it. But one thing that appears to be very, very clearly emerging, that all this that we have seen, and we have been also reminded of the Spanish flu about 100 years ago. We have been reminded of several such epidemics that took place in India and elsewhere. If you look into the causalities of these epidemics and pandemics, then it appears that there was something fundamentally wrong with the way the world was looking at the prospects of political and economic control. Now, what I really mean by this, you see, a Spanish flu also occurred during the heydays of the Spanish expansion, also which was being supported by the colonial expansions and so on and so forth. What it really did, it started creating situations of overseas trade. Commodities from one place moved to another places, and also people started moving. The colonial powers started moving from one place to another. Not that this is entirely bad, and we should be discouraging that. But if we look into the sequence of events, then it appears very clearly that much of the capacities of individuals and humans coming in contact with a kind of an alien environmental situation did impact their health as well as the health of the native population, who in fact came in contact with people from outside. The entire School of Tropical Medicine in London was established in order to support the colonial administration, in order that they do not lose their men and women when they were controlling these colonies. The cantonment areas could perhaps be looking safe. And it was because of the kind of an intervention of the colonial government and the colonial powers that we could see that the entire idea of town planning, sewer sanitation, all these things have roots in these kinds of this particular kind of a development which took place in history. We know about what really happened in influenza in London, elsewhere. Several billions of people, they lost their lives. Now, the point that I'm really trying to make is that can we really elude this crisis primarily to a kind of a mistake or maybe a kind of an uncontrolled situation which took place in a particular city of China, which in fact was also in one of the important centers of production and trade. And therefore, it led to this kind of a crisis, which was a global crisis. We can always blame China, we can always blame X, Y, Z, as we have done in India also. It's very easy to get hold of a community and say, well, you are responsible, not we are responsible. And in our country, you know, a lot of ideas are being evoked in the name of our tradition, our culture of untouchability. Look how good it was. Our ancestors were so very careful, and so on and so forth, and all that. I believe, you know, these are all petty excuses to not look into the problem squarely. Where is the problem? And what is my take on this? My take on this is that the neoliberal globalization is at the core of it. How is at the core of it? What does this globalization and neoliberal economics teach us? Think about growth. And how is the growth possible? By competing with others, by trading more. Our economists, teachers, and books teach us that, you know, if you are in a position to get more of international trade, greater share of it in the international trade, better off you are. So trade, and not that, you know, we are trading for the first time only in the neoliberal situation. In fact, our you know, the scale at which and the kind of trade that was happening even during the Indus Valley and the Mesopotamian civilizations and so on and so forth, there were trades, you know, but these trades were not for greed. These trades were basically to compensate, to in fact look at the scarcity of certain kinds of commodities which was being produced in excess elsewhere. So that is where, you know, the organic linkages of exchange of goods, services start. Now, this process, which I call the organic linkages of production, has something to do with our environmental resource base. Now, what has really been happening with the neoliberalism? Neoliberalism has been teaching us, and the predecessor of the neoliberal, that's the classical economics, which in fact tells us that, you know, industrial systems, a linear industrial system growth is very important. Simon Kuznets tells us that, you know, initially when we grow, there is environmental degradation, but then, you know, as we grow far further, you know, we will take care of the growth itself, will take care of environmental degradation. The Simon Kuznets curve, which is a bell-shaped curve downward. You know, on the one hand, you have the parameters of environmental degradation. On the other hand, you have the per capita income. That means, you know, more per capita income you have towards the later half of the curve, you know, you have begun to solving problems and so on and so forth. So therefore, growth, 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 growth. Now, what has this done? This has really led to three kinds of situations. One, and that is precisely the post-1980s development globally, which is popularly known as Thatcherism or Reaganism and so on and so forth, which is neoliberal economics. What it does, it keeps growth at the center of it. It really discredits the welfare state. The state is seen to be facilitator of the third that is the free market. Free market is seen as the most efficient channel through which we could perhaps reduce wastage, we could price things in a certain manner so that we have greater competitiveness, and that we are in a position to penetrate the global market. So it is not the need which in fact is leading to development of products. It is basically what has been produced must be sold. And that is what we were taught all the time, that more you consume, the better off you are. You have the stages of economic growth by Rostow, and what he says, that a traditional society must transform into a society of high mass consumption. Now, what does this consumption tells us? It's an attitude which has been created as a consequence of this kind of neoliberal economic platform, which generates a kind of an attitude to consume. And in order to consume, the more you will consume, the better off you will be. You have to ape and America. Everybody is trying to ape America. Now, just imagine, if we were to ape America, what will happen to this planet? This planet is certainly going to do. So what we have done, we have the neoliberalism did a death blow to welfare state. That means a welfare state which in fact compensated for the shortages of the people, basically those who were at the lower echelons of development, by generating those avenues which could perhaps help them become better off tomorrow. That means, they invested, the welfare state invested not only in employment, not only in production, where the private ventures were not coming in, but it also invested in education, it also invested in health, and so on and so forth. But then, it was not generating resources. It was not generating profit. It was a constant kind of it was seen to be a constant kind of a drain on the economy. Now, what is that drain? Just look at the Indian situation and compare it with the Western world. The Western world, on an average, spends 5.5 to 6 to 7 to 8% of the GDP on education alone. If you add, I mean, even when they are in a kind of a free market kind of an environment, they seem to be spending so much money on public education. How much have we been spending? Not more than 3% at any given point of time. Effectively, if we were to perhaps look for the price rise and so on and so forth, the best that we have been in a position to achieve was 3.25 at some stage to the GDP, but we have remained close to about 2.7 and so on. If we look into health, we have not spent more than 1%. Higher education, less than 1%. So if that is the kind of a scenario, then because of the fact that we are a democracy, the state cannot completely withdraw from all these things, but it has to pretend that it is still supporting. But what has really come out to be is that we have created much more avenues for privatization. Why I am raising this question of privatization? Because privatization is where, is the medium through which, we are talking about the free market. Instead of talking about the freedom of capabilities, freedom of socio-political conditions which would enhance our capabilities. Some of you may have heard about Amartya Sen, Martha Nussbaum. What they have talked about is that, a democratic situation or a freedom is a need for creating those avenues which empower individuals. And if individuals and societies have greater empowerment, then, it can generate resources, it can recreate resources, and it can do wonders with whatever resources that it is living with. So that is what is the organic linkage that I'm talking about, getting connected with their environment. So what neoliberalism did, it said, okay, the best way to make profit is to take resources, take production avenues, wherever you find the cheapest labor, So China took the advantage of that. India is trying to take compete with others. One state is competing with another state in India, and so on and so forth. So what has really happened is that the spread of neoliberal economy has created greater avenues of unemployment, inequality, income disparities in terms of all such parameters, which in fact are essential for a dignified living. And once you have created this kind of situation, then what you do, you encourage people to move from one place to another. It is not only goods which are moving, now people are also moving from low wage areas to high wage areas. And when they move in expectation of an earning, move in expectation of making their lives. But then that really doesn't happen. We have seen it in this present context as to how the state and the people themselves, both of us will have to be blaming each other and blaming ourselves that none of us really took care of the migrant laborers. The migrant laborers without whom this city of Delhi or the city of Kolkata or the city of Guwahati or the town of Jorhat cannot function, because they are the ones who are providing so many essential services which go absolutely unnoticed. And in the textbooks of economics, they are not valued as important activities because nobody wants to do that. In our kind of a hierarchical social structure, everybody wants to become an engineer or a doctor, or maybe some who did not do so well in education. I'm not really pointing fingers at politicians, but yes, a large number of them are politicians who really don't know what to do, but they're at the mercy of the corporate world because the corporate world really pulls this string. So the story which is being presented is that this is a kind of a pandemic, but we really do not understand that this pandemic is only a culmination of destruction of environmental properties. The global environmental conditions have been completely destroyed. In India, 50% of our land resources are completely destroyed. Our water tables are going down. The level of pollutions that we have. So naturally, if you are inhaling pollutants all the time in the city of Delhi, it's a city of gas. It's a gas chamber in most of the time. But for the last 3 months that we are really in a position to breathe a little comfortably. If you have that kind of situation, your immunity, your entire thing, is getting affected. And, you have to really contain that. Then again, a new technology comes. Okay, you buy fresh air kind of a technology. If you want to have fresh oxygen, then you go to a kiosk and pay $5 or maybe whatever money. If you want to have clean water, you have to do this and that. So, what we have really done in this kind of situation is that it is this neoliberalism, it is this consumption attitude, it is this economics of greed, which in fact has been responsible for the kind of a crisis in which we are. Why and how? You may have heard of PL 480. In 1960s, 67, 68, 69, India was under famine. I mean, there was absolutely destruction of crops, and we were told that we didn't have much to distribute through the PDS systems. So we imported a lot of wheat and food grains from elsewhere, from different parts of the world. They came to our rescue. But PL 480 was a contract between India and American government through which we got a lot many what we call wheat. Now, what came along with PL 480 was a whole range of weeds. So we consumed wheat and we also propagated the weeds in our environment. And some of these weeds have really become a terrible situation, has created or transformed into a terrible situation whereby local people who in fact thrived on those ponds and water resources where you have those weeds called the hyacinths, They are not in a position to regenerate or maybe earn income out of that, because the common properties of such nature have been completely destroyed by the weeds. So that's one part of the story. Similarly, we can talk about as to what is really happening with this neoliberal kind of situation. And most of you may have heard about Wuhan in China. Why was Wuhan this? It could have been anywhere, but why Wuhan became one of the centers from where this disease started, this virus started spreading? We all know that when wages are low, then people use different kinds of sources in order to feed themselves. Wuhan is one such place. Wuhan as a city is excellent. It's a very modern city. But the working classes are working at wages which way below their sustenance. Not all, but a fairly large number of them, whom we can call contract workers or daily wages, so on and so forth. In our village society also, in our urban areas also, we can see that there are class of people who in fact raise pigs in order to sustain themselves. You know. Now, when you have this kind of situation, what I'm really talking about is that when you do not have adequate income, then you tend to thrive on materials obtained from nature, which may be infectious, which may not be good enough for human consumption. But because you do not have enough, you have to eat something. People have been, even the migrants who traveled, some of them, the kids, they were not getting biscuits or they were not getting food. So how did they thrive? You can just imagine, So I'm not going into the details of it. So therefore, this low income is largely being carried out in order that you have, or it is being propelled by a kind of a surplus labor situation where the bargaining power of the labor class is minimal. They are paid in order that somehow they could survive. You know, Ricardian theory told us that the wage can never be below the subsistence level, but I do not believe in this. You can check out that wages in Bihar, at least I know of, were far below this subsistence level for a very, very long period of time, because it was not simply the market which was determining the wage, it was being determined by non-economic factors. And those non-economic factors are caste, enslavization. There was no slavery, but you had those family attached labor, which was exactly a slave. I've seen it from my childhood. you know so they can be given the rotten rice for the day's work. Was that subsistence? So what they would do, some of them would thrive on even consuming rats. You may have heard of a community called the Mushas. So when you really do not have adequate resources, you do this. And when you do this, you become liable to infections. You die, several others die. You transmit infection from one to another because the scale at which you are operating is large enough. So who brought COVID? The, the overseas travelers, not the local migrants. But the local migrants have to really take the brunt of it. The lower classes have to suffer because they are the ones who have lost the job. Now, having said this, I think I have got just about half an hour, and how much time I'm left with? I'm left with another 10-15 minutes. Is that correct, Bhashwati? Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah. Okay. So, can I take 15 minutes? Is that correct?
Yes, sir, 15 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So, in this situation of inequality, now we are looking at the larger picture. Why I'm presenting this larger picture? Because this larger picture needs to be held in our mind in order, as the title of my presentation says, we need to reboot. We need to really take a pause. We really need to take a review of what has really happened, we got to really see as to what are the causes and consequences, and where we really need to prioritize our um, our policy. Without policy, there is no justice that is possible. Niti leads to nyaya. But today we are told everything is good enough as long as you are in a position to have greater profit. Means doesn't matter, but means is important. So inequalities. What has been done in this global kind of neoliberalism? Dispossession. People are being dispossessed of their resources. It's not only happening in areas which are the tribal areas of India. In central India, it is also happening very close by where you are in Jorhat. From Jiribam to More, the railway line, the frontier railway which is being established through the tunnels which have been created, the railway tunnels to again take the resources, the global resources, distribute them all over, penetrate the market wherever, at the cost of the Jhoomers who in fact operated the fields at the top. And we are doing some work out there, and we have been in a position to see as to how the shifting cultivators who depended on natural rain and natural moisture, because of the tunneling, there has been a change in the water retention capacities below. And as a consequence of that, the groundwater drainage system has been completely destroyed. I visited at least 22 such tunnels which were flooding with water while the top was getting dried. So, what was really happening? What was the consequence? The consequence was they were losing their products. And if they didn't have enough to eat, the villages after villages, young people, of course, education could be one of the reasons, but men, women, girls, and boys, they were all taking a train or taking the next transport, which can take them to different places, maybe Delhi or Bangalore or wherever they could work here, there, and there also they are not accommodated. They are treated with racist slurs and so on and so forth, which in our society is a very common thing. We tend to ignore them. So it is this kind of an inequality. The regional inequality, I'm a geographer, so I can talk about that. If you do not quit the resources yourself, the state will encourage or will facilitate the capitalists to in fact take care of your resources, take care of the land in the name of national interests, in the name of creating SEZs. And all these will in fact lead to disfranchisement, which is the ultimate. I think, no other state other than Assam perhaps understands what disenfranchisement means. That means your civil rights, your right to be a citizen is also at stake. The CAA is just not a kind of a nationalist kind of a sentiment that only Indians should stay here. Of course, Indians should stay. What was the government doing? Sitting at the borders, spending so much crores of rupees and allowing infiltration inside. That's a different story. But anyway, if you want to. But then in the name of CAA, you are disenfranchising people. Now, once you disenfranchise people, what happens? They lose control over their property, their land rights, their house, everything is gone. And then who appropriates those resources? Somebody else. Now it is liable to be. And then where these people are going to be there? Are they going to be thrown into airdropped in Bangladesh or elsewhere? I don't think so. They will become the cheapest labor working in the concentration camp for the corporate facilities which will hence be created, because they will become the cheap labor for international competition. And who is going to benefit from this international competition? Growing trade, certainly not I and you. It is maybe I mean, I belong to those 5% of the top echelons of the income class. Maybe some of you could also, but certainly the majority of the listeners belong to the most marginalized sections, both economically as well as socially. So they are not going to. So therefore, while I'm talking about this, just 2 days ago, there was a news item in Counterpunch. In the United States of America, while the United States of America is struggling with COVID, while we in India are struggling with COVID. What is happening in the backyards of the policy making? The Great Basin of North America, where you have junipers and various other kinds of environmental resources, which in fact were left under the control of the Environmental Protection Acts, has now been converted into ranches. And only yesterday, the estimates are that nearly 300 square miles of Great Basin has completely been undone with bulldozers while people are trying to save their relatives. This is the time. Never let, as somebody said, Churchill also said, never let a crisis go waste. So some people are really trying to spin a lot of profit out of this. So there will be ranching, and the local grasses will all disappear, and there will be grasses which will be littered around. Seedling will happen, which will only feed the cows and the buffaloes, which of course sell in the international market, and so on and so forth. So therefore, the disenfranchisement which is going on, of course, the disenfranchisement is happening on the margins of the Indians, but in India, we are an extremely populous country. We don't have places which are left vacant. Any such attempt to, in fact, take care of the resource rights, the rights of the people who perhaps, recreate resources, regenerate resources. The poor do not destroy. The poor do not pollute. The poor do not cut trees, which are living. I know that working among the Birhors for nearly about 3 years for doctoral students. The Birhors are the forest dwellers, and they are not seen to be the destroyers of the forest. They help regenerate the forest because that is the rhythm of life. And they're happy. I mean, I'm not saying that they should be left to what they are. And I'm not talking in the language of Varia Elvin, who said that tribes are, of course, they have a very rich tradition, and their youngsters, they also want to live in cities, and why not? And that could be the process. So, so where are we? Inequality is one of the worst that we can perhaps think of. What are the recent book by Thomas Piketty, the one which was published just about 3 months ago? It's a voluminous work. I'm not recommending some of you to read that because it runs into 900 plus pages. But it's called Ideology and Capital. His previous book was Capital in the 21st Century. He was not talking about capital in the language of Karl Marx. And not that I have any apologies, being a Marxist. But I'm not a political Marxist in that sense. I do not belong to any political party. So what needs to be done? Thomas Piketty says, do 3 things. 1, bring about changes in the tax structure. What is the tax structure? The tax structure globally and wherever perhaps it is of a different kind has done wonders. But wherever and whenever it was done, where the property taxes were very low, where the inheritance taxes were very low, you'd be surprised that Warren Buffett, who is one of the most richest millionaire of the world, pays less tax than his secretary. And this is no joke, you can check it out. And there are a number of other studies which tells us not only about the growing taxation, which in fact, the cause of taxation. And what is this taxation all about? Encourage those who can really have the capacity, those who have the mind to become entrepreneurs and so on, so as if they come from some other planet. This kind of a bias in the nature of taxation, in the name of development, in the name of growth, is something which will have to be looked into. And that is where Thomas Piketty says, change this. Number 2, believe in communities. Raghuram Rajan also wrote a book, The 4th Pillar. And what is the 4th pillar that he's talking about? This is just about a year ago. He's talking about the community, faith in community. empower communities rather than taking away their rights to property. As it is, the property rights are so iniquitous in this country. We can't do much about it. In 70 years, we have done something, but we haven't done much. There's a lot needs to be done. Now, everything cannot be really reduced to land reforms in agriculture, but then agriculture is certainly an important area that has to be seen. And ever since 1980s, and more particularly after 1991, ever since you have the situation of structural adjustment, agriculture has lost public funding. Agriculture and allied activities have lost government supports, and all such infrastructure which was created by villagers, by the communities, are gradually slipping out of their hands. The common property resources are slipping out of the hands of the marginalized people. 1986 NSSO report says that of every rupee that was being consumed by the marginalized community, nearly about 38 to 50 paise, that means 38 to 50% of what they consumed came from these common property resources. Now, the common property resources are restricted. There is nobody who is going to allow you water. The water is being privatized. Land is being privatized. Your resources are being controlled by somebody else. The state will always facilitate that. And therefore, you will be in a dire soup. So therefore, community, as it is, communities in India, which is of course hierarchical, stratified, somebody says, I'm a pike, so I'm a superior, and you are not a pike, so you are inferior. Haikyas are superior and some others are not. I mean, that goes on, but I think, there was a phase in Indian history, post-independence period, when, we were thinking more like Indians rather than people of certain caste and so on and so forth. Now, what are the signals? The signals are that countries or societies, which in fact has been perpetually, in spite of the fact that, they also operated within the neoliberal framework, they have been continuously investing in people. Investment in people by the state, like in Scandinavian countries, like in New Zealand, in Germany, and several other smaller island countries, has really kept the situation where the public health infrastructure has taken care of people in this kind of a crisis. Today, New Zealand is free of this crisis. Maybe it rebounds. One doesn't know the nature of the virus, but nevertheless, this has been the situation. If a state had invested in people's education, then people would have their capabilities, and they will regenerate the resources, which they will imagine their resources in a very different ways. They will not have to wait for the government to give them jobs. They will create jobs for themselves. They will create livelihoods for themselves. Now, this kind of situation, which in fact has to be really talked about. So we got to really take a pause. We got to really look at the situation where we could finally, the last word that I would like to, with which I would like to, it's not a last word. I'm nobody to give a last word. There's an interesting work, which I was reading just about 10 days ago. This is a book by one Roworth, and not only she, but several others, and they all happen to be women economists, And I tell you, these women economists, and especially addressing girls' college, should inspire them. That they have really started looking at the entire economics from a different perspective. It is not home economics, which in fact generally women tend to be associated with. This work by Roworth is called donut economics. You have seen a donut, which is hollow from inside, and then there is a ring of something eatable. And she borrows that framework from one of the Finnish authors, who worked on the boundaries of environmental sustainability and so on and so forth. And therefore, she was in a position to, I would not go into the details of it, because, you can download it. It's freely available. In case you don't have it, you can write to me. I will send my copy to you, which is in PDF, and you can read. It's an interesting book. what it really talks about. We have been talking for nearly 2 decades, 3 decades, sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. We talk about sustainability, but we are becoming far more unsustainable. We are generating volumes of literature, volumes of researches being done. People talk about in this seminar, in that webinar, sustainable development. Sustainable development is exactly a kind of an, in Indian terms, I would call it, it has become a street slogan. We only raise slogans like we beat thalis and to drive away viruses. So we also talk about this, and we really don't do much. What this author talks about, she talks about three things: regenerate, restore, and redistribute. If I were to perhaps talk about regeneration, I'll have to refer to yet another good work, which in fact questions the very basic tenets of economics in terms of how economics values work, as if, only the top echelons of the bureaucracy and the top echelons of the engineers and doctors, they generate value. The bureaucracy generates value. The top managers generate value. And who are the people who are working in the streets, which brings us food, every day? They don't generate value. Just think of it. The moment they disappeared, some of us who had money, we couldn't go to buying vegetables. So what is the value? पैसा तो मेरी जेब में ही रह गया, खाना कहाँ से खाएंगे? So questioning value in order so that we could help regenerate the lost environmental properties. One can talk about recycle and all that, which is going on for a while. If creative capabilities are clubbed with revisiting the question of value as to how value is created, with everything which can satisfy your needs and wants, you call it, okay, this is valuable. But then, somebody needs to really question, why is it that value in the dowry market in Bihar? I can tell you, it's a funny thing. But if you become an IS, you become valuable who can perhaps get crores. But if you are a school teacher, you will perhaps remain unmarried. Well, this is not to sound alarm to those who would like to become school teachers. But then, this is what really valuing, how society values, what kind of work. This needs to undergo a change. We have to really change our attitude from the neoliberal, exploitative, growth-oriented. We got to really revisit growth. Growth for what? Growth to satisfy our needs, our greeds. High rate of GDP, 7%, 8%, I am growing that way. What is really happening below? Have we really redistributed it? So any growth which is not supported by redistribution is a hollow growth. And that growth which you are really talking about cannot be sustained. There was a long time back, a very beautiful text, which was written, North-South dialogue, and in this, that was the conclusion. The rich countries must help the poor countries because their richness cannot survive for long. So redistribution, and that is what Thomas Piketty talks about. He talks about creating a situation of reasonable inequality. The inequality that we have is socially and economically generated. It is not inherently in the quality of a humankind. It is socially constructed and socially generated. And once you are in a position to regenerate and redistribute the wealth, the value, whatever that you want to say, will restore the environmental balance. We have really consumed our earth. We got to restore it. And as long as we do not restore it, you have COVID-19 now, you will be facing much severe kind of problems tomorrow. We got to really pause, revisit our past, revisit our priorities in public policy, spend in public health and public education. Just imagine what is being done today in the name of education. Since schools, colleges have been closed down, everybody is talking of online. Who has the resources? How many homes, In our rural areas, when we have the internet density, which is in rural areas, it is less than 25. In Bihar, it is less than 10. I really do not know what is the situation in your state, but it's not the same. And who has the capability to buying phones? Okay, the government will give you, subsidy again, because those laptops and phones and gadgets which you require for online education. And then what will happen? Online education would be only meant for people who cannot go to colleges themselves. Why will they not go to colleges? Because in the daytime, they should be working as labor for these corporate bodies. In the evening, they should be spending time on online courses just in order to feel that they are doing something important. Because, this is the time of flexible specialization. Technology which is today becomes redundant tomorrow, so you have to relearn, and this relearning would happen only through online. There is no real education that is possible without face-to-face contact, because education is not an online, is not a digital process, it's a social process, right? So I believe, we got to really stop, pause, and rethink about our priorities. We need to reboot, but reboot differently. I've just, the last line, I've just finished a work which has been published. It got published only yesterday. It's a 10-page article on a similar line. If some of you want to read that, you can download Geography and You, because this is a journal I'm associated with for fairly long. And I think, in a way, I'm trying to publicize also. But, this article which I have written addresses many such issues, many such works, which have been done in the last 2-3 years, which will become very, very instrumental in understanding the current problem and solving the current issue. Thanks a lot, DCB College and listeners, for giving me this opportunity. And I believe, I can't talk much about COVID. You all are really facing the situation. I am affected the least. I'm only affected to the extent because I know I'm 60 plus and I'm on the wrong side of the age who is likely to get infected. But, that's all. Thank you very much. And if there are questions, I'll respond.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible to everyone?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you, sir. This was really very informative and analytical talk. So I think people are opened up with lots of questions now. So with your permission, can we proceed to question answer session, sir?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
absolutely.
Okay. So the first question is from Shyamal Bara. He has asked, in countries from Brazil to China to Germany, lockdowns have been correlated with increased reports of domestic violence and unequal care burdens. What would be your suggestion on this matter?
Yeah, I mean, you see, the domestic violence in most of the countries is something which is what we know about as the tip of the iceberg. There are various kinds and forms of violence which takes place in our society. Even the most liberal and educated and progressive, so-called progressive societies also have too many of these problems. But when you are in crisis, then the question is as to whose opinion and who takes the decision. So who decides? So once you are in a position, the tensions occur as a consequence of the fact. I mean, I know of my students, who are facing problems in their homes. I know. Okay. I know of some of my students who are home, and they are trying to take down my lectures, which I am sending them recorded lectures, and their parents are not allowing them with phones and so on and so forth. In 52% of India's villages, ladies are not allowed a cell phone. So the gender divide gets all the more stark in situations of such crisis. So we got to then, how do we really address this? We can address this question only when, we have the institutionalized dimensions. And what is the institutionalized dimension? The institutionalized dimension is that a person who is working in a university, is in the workplace, is in a position to lodge a complaint. I mean, nobody should suffer, if it goes beyond. And if the society is not in a position to contain this kind of process, we got to go to the institutions that be. But what has really happened in the last 5-7 years? We created this very strong institution called the GS Cash, gender sensitization committees in our Indian universities. That has been done away. That has been undone. You know, 20 years of our struggle, and I was also one of them who, in fact, works incessantly for creating such institution. Now today there is no GS Cash. So you have to really lodge a complaint to the higher authority. The higher authority will therefore, call you, will threaten you. All kinds of things are going on. So that is the power structure. The power structure today is not conducive to, and is not sensitive to the fact that, women have the same equal right. The moment, I'm talking about these five ladies who, in fact, wrote just wonderful books on economics, questioning the traditional economics and whatever that we really knew of economics. They have been clubbed as the most dangerous woman of the 21st century. You know, so you got to be a woman. If you're talking sense, nobody would listen to you. The power structure is so asymmetrical. In our homes, if there is something happening to our sister, we tend to turn a blind eye. Now I'm not saying that, take a revolution to your home, but, there has to be some reasonable way through which the dignity could be imparted to every individual. And if individual doesn't get the dignity that she deserves at home, then the state will have to ensure that, if community fails. Thank you.
Sir, next question is from Pranjal Pratim Borua. At the backdrop of COVID-19 and emerging inequality and disempowerment, how the push-pull factors are getting reconfigured, and with the altered consumerist-driven production ecosystem, how can the contemporary trend of urbanization be reimagined in times to come?
You have too many subsets to your question. You're asking me to write a book now. You're inspiring me to write a book. It's like this. The push-pull factor is a consequence of what I really said, that there is a unequal kind of wage rate. There are conditions which, in fact, may not be so much conducive. You get pushed out of it, and you're from your own village, because there is not income opportunities. It's a traditional way of looking at things. If we look, not that, people did not move out ever. We have villages after villages, whatever may have been the reasons. There are a number of villages in India which have been reported as uninhabited villages. Even in the past, we know of accounts where villages where people left the village, they went elsewhere, because maybe the environmental conditions did not sustain them, or maybe there was threat from outside, or whatever may have been the reason. So the question is that, this how it's getting redefined. One of the redefinition is that the people are the workers have gone back, and they, on their way, they died. We didn't take care of them. The state didn't take care of them. So that's the sensitivity that we got to really learn. How it's getting redefined. Now, you have the sowing season in Punjab. You have the sowing season in Bihar also, because we had a rice cropping area. Now there is a local demand, and therefore, in this kind of a situation, what is really happening is that Manrega plus the local demand for labor for rice cultivation, the demand is going to be much greater. Now, if that is happening, I really do not have the grassroots kind of an information. Then there is a struggle for demand, demand of labor. So the Punjab farmers are now agreeing to a new kind of a condition. Earlier, they were really treating these workers as slaves. But today, I really do not know how things are likely to happen in due course of time. Can we really say that this will be the wonderful occasion to revisit the labor laws? No, the state, while while I'm talking about this, that the Punjabi farmers are willing to give them higher wages, give them better conditions of living. They have sent, yesterday I saw a video clip where they have, somebody has sent, the contractor has sent an air conditioned bus to some village from where they are going to get fetch the laborers. You know, you have the labor excess situation in Bihar. Population density is very high. You know, the unemployment situation has been created further. They got to really learn. They got to earn. They got to earn. They cannot survive without earning. You know, so they will come back. Now, once they come back, what will happen? So it will again back to square one. Once this COVID goes away, we'll be back to square one. We'll be talking in the same language: high growth, profit, you know, corporate job, plastic money, buying things on credit. Imagine the housing crisis which was created by Lehman Brothers. India was saved. Why was it saved? India was saved primarily because, you know, we had the local demand. You know, we were not dependent on trade. You know, we could really do, and that was Genesis. That was the time when we started the food security and the Manrega program, which this government, whichever be the government, they were very critical of. They were critical of because it really changed the power relations in the village, because now the workers will say, I'm going to the urban area, you don't give me this much of money, I will not work on you. So that is where the crux of the problem was. Yeah, of course there were leakages. What is really happening in the urban areas? Urban areas will have to really rethink. Urban areas, you know, has been the places of suction accumulation of resources from all over its periphery. You know, it becomes a kind of an seat of accumulation of capital, you know, and it doesn't allow it to get redistributed. You know, it really pulls everything towards itself. There is no centrifugality, you know, in terms of whatever influences that you really talk about. You just got to really travel 30 kilometers from where I'm speaking, from JNU. If you are aware of Delhi, in South Delhi, you just got to travel 30 kilometers in Haryana. That is one of, in a place called Mewat, which is one of the most backward areas, backward districts on the map of India. Next only to Koraput and Bastar and such areas, Palamau, you know, maybe some in Assam also. So it is only 30 kilometers away. No dynamism is happening there, because they will say, somebody will create a term, in the shadow of a metropole. But this metropole is surviving precisely because it attracts labor, pays them less, it really gets the services, doesn't pay them, accumulates the capital, creates pollution, creates situations of uncertainty. So, and that is why somebody really takes away our dream. You know, स्मार्ट सिटी बनाना है, स्मार्ट सिटी बनाना है. अरे भैया, पहले तो रहने के लिए जगह दे दो, स्मार्ट सिटी बाद में कर लेंगे, है ना. स्मार्ट सिटी कहाँ बन गया? अब तो कोई स्मार्ट की तो बात ही नहीं कर रहा है ना. स्मार्ट सिटी क्या है? स्मार्ट सिटी का मतलब होता है सारा ऐप जो है ना, ऐप बेस्ड काइंड ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड आपका सारा काम होगा. अरे खाने को अनाज नहीं है, ऐप बेस्ड कहाँ से होगा? So therefore, you know, the cities in India they have, and also globally, they have become unsustainable. The water that I'm drinking is being transported from nearly about 150 to 300 kilometers away from Garhmukteshwar. I don't have the resources locally, you know, to give me drinking water, you know, and at what cost? That's geography. Somebody from Garhmukteshwar is sending water at the cost of his or her own consumption rights, you know, in the field and so on and so forth. All our urban centers have become absolutely unsustainable. The only way out is decentralized, centralized in a decentralized way. Because if we have resource constraints, if we spread the resources too widely, it will become very thin. It will not have impact. So that's why I'm saying decentralized in a centralized way. That means there shouldn't be full decentralization of responsibilities, but involve the communities in a creative manner so that they have the authority and rights to say, okay, this is my water. At one point of time when Sushma ji was alive, Sushma Swaraj, I delivered a talk which she was chairing, and it was on water. And I said that the rights of the local people are being ignored. And she was very angry with me, and she got up and said, ये रिवोल्यूशनरी लोग पता नहीं कहाँ से आ जाते हैं, लोगों को बहकाते हैं कि तुम्हारे राइट्स कहाँ चले गए। आरूप ज्योतिष हाइकिया की किताब अभी एक आई है, मैंने अभी आधा ही पढ़ा है, द बायोग्राफी ऑफ ब्रह्मपुत्र। क्या वंडरफुल किताब है, आप पढ़िए उसको, देखिए क्या हुआ आपके हमारे ब्रह्मपुत्र के साथ, उसके आसपास के रिसोर्सेज के साथ किस तरह से खिलवाड़ हुआ है। ये कोई सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का सवाल नहीं है, ये पावर इक्वेशन का सवाल है ना। इसलिए इसको जरा सा एक वी हैव टू लुक एट इट। आई एम सॉरी आई स्विच्ड ओवर टू हिंदी, but some of you can understand, Hindi films are very popular, like Bhupen Hazarika is very close to my heart. So I can just go on this, but I can only say that the push pull and the urban, the equations will have to be changed. The state will have to take the initiative. The people will have to take this initiative in order to change the equation between the migrant labor, between the lower working classes. The state will have to recognize that their dignified conditions of living is very, very important, central, and that didn't happen. In fact, the COVID crisis put that straight away on our face, that the day it started, from 25th onwards, they lost their homes, they lost their jobs, they were thrown onto the streets, and the state also did not take care of them, in the name of social distancing. What is the social distancing are we already talking about? I really do not know. I really do not understand whether the social, yes, the virus is very, very dangerous. We've got to really protect ourselves. But, let us not get into a new kind of equation of our social relations called social distancing in a country where untouchability is so deeply ingrained in our heart and mind. It can create a havoc. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So this was really a fruitful discussion, but due to the paucity of time, we will be unable to take more questions. So I request all the participants to send their queries and questions in our official email ID, dcbgeography@gmail.com, which is also written in our webinar brochure. We will send those questions and queries to our speaker, Professor Sinha, and we'll get back to you all as soon as possible. So, Professor Sinha, you have beautifully put light on different dimensions of this pandemic, different inequalities which are responsible to this distress situation, different stratification of societies which are related to this distress situation. From on behalf of our Department of Geography, DCB Girls College, Jorhat, I would like to thank you for such a beautiful session, beautiful lecture. And I also like to thank all the participants to listen very carefully for such an incredible interactive session. Okay, now I'll hand over the proceeding to my colleague Juri Borua, and our next speaker is waiting. So I will again thank Professor Sinha. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I will certainly respond to each and every question that you will send me.
Yes, sir.
So do it as quickly as possible, and I will respond to them.
Okay,
right?
sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
And
And
sorry,
thank you.
sir.
Thanks once again. And I'm sorry I'll have to leave because there's somebody who is waiting down the stairs for some attention. So may I be allowed to leave? Otherwise,
Yes,
I would have loved listening to Banamallika Chakravarti. My apologies to her. My apologies to you. I also need to eat my lunch. I mean, I had not taken my lunch. So, so
Okay,
thank you
sir.
very much. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Okay.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Um, now I will hand over proceeding to my colleague Jury Borua.
Thank you, Varsity. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I think Banamallika ba is already here.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Can you hear
So
me?
Banamallika Choudhury is a feminist. I'm introducing her. She is also a women's rights activist, social entrepreneur, and mother from Northeast based in Guwahati. She has founded the organization called Anything. She is currently an executive director of Women Leadership Training Center, which is located in Assam. The center has been doing relief work to support women in distress and those affected by the COVID-19 during lockdown. In the process, they surveyed 200 and more women from 11 districts in Assam about the impact the lockdown has had on their lives. Banamallika Choudhury also has been working in the field of migration and women, gender rights, unpaid women workers. So now I request dear Banamallika Ba to deliver her lecture on the report that they have prepared and its existing challenges related to policy making as well as disaster resistance. Over to you, Bonaba.
Okay. Thank you. So first of all, yes, thank you for inviting me to come. Englishot kom ne ami moi Asomiyat kom. What is what
It can be bilingual. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So মই তেনেহলে যদি বেছিভাগ মানুহে অসমীয়া তেনেহলে মই অসমীয়া আৰু ইংলিছ দুটা মিহলি কৰি পিনে কম মই এটা প্ৰেজেন্টেশন ৰেডি কৰিছো যোনটো ইংলিছতে আছে আৰু মই যিমানখিনি পাৰো অসমীয়াত কৈ দিম হেৰিখিনি মোৰ ক'বলগীয়াখিনি So মই thank you Jury introductionৰ কাৰণে sorry bye bye I'm working Okay, sorry, you can see what motherhood does.
Yeah.
this is
It's
multitasking for women during lockdown. So yes, I'm going to just share my screen. My presentation at a ready korisu. Aru moi teket goal goi. Moi actually Professor Sinha dekha paise ni screen kon.
হয় দেখা পাইছো
Okay. So Professor Sinha মই thank you কব খুজিছিলো এটো কাৰণে যে তেখেতে যোনখিনি কথা কৈ গল ইকোনমিক্সৰ কথা the neoliberal economics or framework আৰু কেনেকে মানুহ তাৰ তাৰ ফলত more and more people get disenfranchised and become sorry so একেলগে হবলৈ হৈছে এতিয়া yeah my phone is also ringing now the whole day I'm just give me 1 second. So তেখেতে কৈ গ'ল যে কেনেকৈ মানুহ how people become vulnerable এইটো systemত this in the how unequal this system has been so তেখেতে সেইখিনি যোনখিনি ক'লে আমাৰ যোনখিনি মই এতিয়া feminist concerns বুলি যোনখিনি ক'বলৈ গৈছো যে feminist concerns খিনিও is around that যে এইটো যোনটো existing system আছে that system already is unequal যে inequality বঢ়াই inequalities সৃষ্টি কৰি থৈছে সিস্টেমটোৱে আৰু তাৰে ইম্প্যাক্ট আমি দেখা পাই আছো এতিয়া এইটো সিচুৱেচনত ক্ৰাইসিসৰ তো মই প্ৰথমতে এইটো মই ক্লিয়াৰ কৰি দিও যে যেহেতু ফেমিনিজম লৈ এতিয়াও বহুতৰ মাজত কিছুমান what is feminism লৈ পিনে বহুত ধৰণৰ ডাউট সন্দেহ আছে গটিকে মই যোনটো মই ফেমিনিষ্ট বুলি ক'লে যি বুজি পাওঁ আৰু নিজকে যেনেকৈ চিনাকি দিওঁ তাতে আমি ডিফাইন কৰিছো যে the term feminist is used because it goes beyond working towards equality and rights of women অকল womenৰ কথাই নহয় যে it wants to change the system which the patriarchal belief system institutions junbilake they oppress women girls trans people intersex and non-binary people and it happens globally and this includes the dominant economic system which makes its profits from the exploitation of people and nature. Junkinir kotha olop agote Professor Sinha koye goise dekhuai goise. So the feminists are aiming to achieve equality within this, that system needs to change so that we can achieve equality between different people. So that is the kind of feminism I am talking about. This definition of feminist has been put together from many discussions by associations of women in development. Aru একেটাই কনসার্ন যে ফেমিনিষ্ট আমি এতিয়া ফেমিনিষ্ট উই হ্যাভ বিন অবজার্ভিং ফেমিনিষ্ট আমি অবজার্ভ কৰিছোঁ যে কি হৈ আছে what has been the impact. There has been such a sudden and deep crisis. You know, there is a crisis of health, the pandemic itself, the disease itself, the pandemic itself. And to deal with the pandemic, the kind of actions governments have to had to take, tied into a lockdown and shutting down of various institutions, various services, ebilakor junto impact porise, the economic impact, So what has been the impact on women and non-binary? In my presentations, I have included women and non-binary people. This also covers people with disabilities. I am not focusing so much on the migrant worker crisis, which is deep and another large crisis. Migrant worker crisis needs a complete session on itself. So I, in my sessions, I am only touching upon migrant workers crisis in some points. So what we are saying is that due to the existing inequality, due to the system the system that has been promoted, the system that exists, the system that has been institutionalized, it is already unequal and it has created inequality and vulnerability. So impact of the pandemic and resultant economic crisis will be felt differently by different groups of people. Women will feel it differently. People who do not, non-binary people, people who do not identify themselves as men and women, they identify themselves as something beyond being men or women, and men or other people, So it will be experienced differently by different groups of people. Poverty, income insecurity, lack of adequate health care, lack of access to information and technology, this kind of inequality which already exists will multiply vulnerability along with gender, race, caste and disability, etc. So juntu feminism or famous central idea that intersectionality, there beleg manuhor, where we are located in society, our class, our gender, our race, our ability, this determines the kind of power we have. Aru hey power tour, with the impact of COVID-19 is also will be felt differently because of that. Arujuntu existing individualistic and profit-oriented systems have to be reorganized to community-centric and localized actions to address the crisis created by the pandemic. That solutions quota said, the feminists have also been saying that, like Professor Sinha had also said, that we can't find solutions in the same system. We will need to, he talked about decentralizations, we are saying that localized, every action, I mean, dekhilu je ultimately go bina ami ki dekhilu, if we see that people had to come back home, every city survives on the back of the migrant workers, but they could not sustain them for 3 months. We saw in India. So everybody had to come back home. So this idea of home, this idea of local, which was already destroyed by the globalized system, the neoliberal globalized system. And now that cannot, we cannot, this system has created this problem and we cannot, go back into looking for solutions within that system. We will have to think newly about the system. So my next slide is, so I mean, we have been trying to, feminists have been trying the key impact to say, let us document. So the other thing about other tool, a very, very powerful feminist tool is, documenting and telling the stories of what is happening with people. We feel that this is very, very important. If we want to change the system, we need to document and constantly tell stories of what is happening to people within this existing system. So as part of that process, ami eta survey korisilu bahut feminist organizations feminist groups beleg type survey kori ase document kori ase beleg dhorone ami Ohomot more than about 260 women we interviewed Hodia, Dibrugarh, Tinsukia, Jorhat, Dhemaji, Dorong, Golaghat, Tezpur, Kukrajhar, Chirang, Udalguri, Guwahati. I don't know if I left any. So, বহুত কিখন 11, 12, 13, 14 মান জিলাত আমি এই জিলাৰ মহিলাৰ লগত আমি এইটো সাৰ্ভে কৰিছিলো so আমি যোনটো দেখিছো আৰু this is also some of these impacts are also seen globally so that has been reported globally by different feminist organizations আমি এটা দেখিছো যে increased work burden which somebody has already talked about it that increased work burden includes care work আমি যেটো জানো care work বুলি কলে আমি nursing cleaning providing nutrition doctors বা বাহিৰৰ হস্পিটেলত থাকে caregivers থাকে extra যোন nurse নহয় কিন্তু they give care এনেকুৱা হেয়াবিলাক আমি দেখা পাইছো যে the care work within the formal setup তেওঁলোকৰ কাম বহুত বাঢ়ি গৈছে এতিয়া all of a sudden people are working non-stop for 36 hours 54 hours there are reports of nurses working without a break they get like maybe half an hour break in a day they've been working like this in some places for weeks like that in hospitals so we see that care work burden has increased within the formal setup we also see that ami nijo the frontline community health workers junkhini ase ami yate dekha pao asha anganwadi ba etia bahut volunteers who loise these are all women and their work has increased asha bilake ekdom ghore goi ase rode borokunde protek ghor manuhote every week they have to visit households and find out if anyone is feeling sick so their work burden has increased manifold then household chores some people are talking about so interesting thing that household work badhise interesting thing is that household work or hisab keneke hoy egoraki manuhe jete ghorot kaam kore how do we count household work I'll come to that when I share about the household work thing so karon ami jete survey korisilu tetia ohomot bahut mohilai koisil je nai kaam eke ase যোনটো তেওঁলোকে হিসাব কৰা নাই আমি পিছত ভালকৈ খুদুতে আৰু যোনখিনি ৰিসাৰ্চাৰ আছিল তেওঁলোকেও শেয়াৰ কৰিছে যে যেনেকে আগতে তেওঁ 4 জন মানুহৰ কাৰণে যেনিবা ভাত বনাইছিলে আৰু এতিয়া ঘৰলৈ মানুহ ঘুৰি আহাৰ কাৰণে বা কাম কৰিবলৈ নগৈ সব মানুহ ঘৰত থাকাৰ কাৰণে তেওঁতে 6 জন মানুহৰ কাৰণে ভাত বনাব লাগে কিন্তু হেতুক তেওঁৰ কাম বাঢ়িছে বুলি হিসাব নকৰে বা তেওঁ 6 জন মানুহৰ কাপোৰ ধুই আছে বা তেওঁ আৰু দুজন মানুহৰ চোৱা চিতা কৰি আছে হেতুক তেওঁ কাউন্ট নকৰে যে মোৰ কাম বাঢ়িলে বুলি কাউন্ট নকৰে এটোটো মানে কামে মোৰে কাম আৰু এনেকে বুলি ভাবে then the burden of ami juntu dekhilu amar stories bilakor par mohila kolor kotha patute je burden of providing food for the family has increased a lot mohila hokole যেতিয়া ঘৰত যদি খানা না থাকে তেওঁলোকে উলাই গৈছে কোট পাব কাৰবাৰ ঘৰৰ পৰা আনিব পাৰে নেকি পথাৰৰ পৰা হাক বুটলিব পাৰে নেকি বেলেগৰ ঘৰৰ পৰা কিবা ফলমূল খুজি আনিব পাৰে নেকি এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ কামবিলাক সব মহিলাই কৰিবলৈ লৈছে তাৰ উপৰিও চাইল্ড কেয়াৰ এতিয়া স্কুল বন্ধ বাচ্চা বিলাক সব ঘৰত আছে লৰা ছোৱালী বিলাক তেওঁলোকক চোৱাচিতাৰ গুটেই দায়িত্বখিনি পঢ়া শুনা কৰোৱাৰ আনকি মিডল ক্লাছ ফ্যামিলি যত অনলাইন এডুকেশন যোনে এক্সেস কৰিব পাৰিছে তাতো আনকি বেছিভাগ মাদাৰ্স আৰ টেকিং কেয়াৰ অফ देयर এডুকেশন elderly care jot ঘৰত বয়সস্থ মানুহ আছে তেওঁলোকৰ কেয়াৰ আৰু যদি বেমাৰী মানুহ আছে প্লাস যোনখিনি COVID-19 পেশেন্টস আছে ঘৰত থকাখিনি বাহিৰত থকাখিনি গুটেই কামখিনি দায়িত্ব মহিলা অকলৰ ওপৰত besides even income generating work jeneke bahut mohilai report korise je ji lockdown or homoy jetia purush hokolok jeneka bostu bikri koribole gakhir bikri koribole vegetable bikri koribole mass bikri koribole eneka ulai gole police purush hokolok marpit kore aru khub digdar die hetu karone bahut thait bahut mohilai তেওঁলোকে মহিলা সকল উলাই গল আগতে যোনটো কাম নকৰে যেনেকে সাইকেল ঠেলি ঘৰে ঘৰে বস্তু বিক্ৰী কৰিবলৈ মহিলা সকলে যোৱা কৰিছে সো মানে even more the taking on more work of increasing income বঢ়াবলৈ কাম কৰিবলৈ আৰু besides মহিলা সকলে ফায়াৰ খৰি আনা পানী আনা গৰু ছাগলী চোৱা, ঘৰৰ খেতিখিনি চোৱা, সেইবিলাক কামটো কৰেই। So our survey, this is from the local survey. My survey report to share kori dim. Julie, you can share this with all the participants if they are interested. So
Sure.
just kisuman finding I have only brought out. That 34.5% women. Teoloke koisile je teoloke gute kam khini de nije kore. Cooking, cleaning, managing food supply, okole kore boli koisile. 58% কৈছিলে যে তেওঁলোকৰ কামত তেওঁলোকে সহায় পায় কিন্তু তেতিয়া আমাৰ মানে চবে ভাবিছে বা ইমান মানুহ আছে দে মানে ফ্যামিলিত সহায় কৰে আৰু এনেকুৱা সাধাৰণতে আমি দেখা নাপাওঁ ইন্টাৰেষ্টিংলি আছিলে যে কোনে সহায় কৰে বুলি খুদুতে তেতিয়া তেওঁলোকে ক'লে যে other women in the family helps them mother sister in law daughter তেওঁলোকে সহায় কৰে বুলি ক'লে 94.79% of women have been involved in unpaid domestic labor. So they kore hekhini kam due to domestic worker household work basically domestic work boli koa ase eta aru au ghorar bahirotu kam kore he bahiroloi ulai jay fuel mane firewood pani ebila aniboloi karone আৰু এখিনি প্ৰডাক্টিভ ওয়ার্ক বুলিয়ে ধৰে যেনেকুৱা গৰু ছাগলী পোহা বা ফাৰ্মত কাম কৰা বা কনষ্ট্ৰাকচনত কাম কৰা সো ডমেষ্টিক মানে হাউসহোল্ড ওয়ার্ক কৰাৰ বাহিৰেও এখিনি কাম মহিলাসকলে কৰে সো হেতু আমি দেখা পালো আমাৰ সাৰ্ভেত নেক্সট আছিলে Okay, next is we notice that globally due to feminist concerns have been that there has been an increase in violence or violence, not just domestic violence. There has been more restrictions on movement in accessing public spaces. And etia jehetu iman bond ase lockdown ase already sobore uporate restrictions ase movement or in which case then women were facing more restrictions jekele ulai jabo lage toy nogoleo hobo but in case of to protect the men and to go out to work tate kintu women were going out more so we've seen increase in domestic violence has been reported from many places this should be mental abuse so mental abuse both knowingly unknowingly but the tension within the domestic sphere has increased a lot people are fighting a lot and we already know that when people fight in an already unequal relationship between a man and a woman a fight is never fair or who wins or who gets the brunt of it we know so a lot of women have reported that they're facing mental harassment and they're taking in the burden of the mental harassment faced by different family members this has happened lack of response from police this we have seen with our own ami jehetu violence against women or case of response koru ami dekhisu je ekhini homoyot jiman policeok phone korile police thana loi gole tenuke sobe khali koi thake je ami etia corona loi pine byasto asu so teluke logaloge report response nokore junbilak number ase junbilak number pora teluke ahibo lage ba police thanar pora manu ahibo lage ebilak sob caseote delay hoi asile aru then we also saw that like institutional support thake jeneka shelter homes of tetia na teolukor safety karone ব্যবস্থা লৈছিলে আৰু নতুন মানুহ গলে shelter homes বিলাকে লব বিচাৰা নাই বহুত ক্ষেত্ৰতে এয়া হৈছিলে ফাইনালি নৰ্থ ইষ্ট নেটৱৰ্কে বহুত সৰকাৰৰ লগত যুদ্ধ কৰি এটা SOP systems and procedures যে কি কৰিব লাগিব পুলিচে ৰেসপন্ড কৰিবই লাগিব এনেকৈ বুলি সৰকাৰৰ ফালৰ পৰা এটা উলিয়াইছে but this is what we had seen in the field so our survey koisile je only birat kom number e moi koisilu je birat kom number of women in this survey also responded saying that they are not facing matro 14% e koise je they are facing domestic violence but 37.3% e koise je they saw others facing violence aru interesting asile the researchers junkhini asile june community researchers june mohila hokolor logot kotha patise tenuke sobe koise je ei bishoy tu loi pine kotha pata iman easy nohoy mohila hokole kotha share koribo nibisare aru bishekkoi jehetu ei samoy khinit ami ghore goi pine ba phonot interview kora hoisil mohila hokolor logot kotha pata hoisil jehetu family member khini logote asile gotike মহিলাসকলে এইখিনিক লৈ পিনে কথা পাতিবলৈ মানে they were hesitating, তেওঁলোকে কথা পাতিব বিচৰা নাছিল। আৰু এটা ইণ্টাৰেষ্টিং আছিল যে এইখন শ্লাইডত নাই, ইন দ্য ৰিপৰ্ট ইজ দেয়াৰ, যে আমি যেতিয়া সুধিছিলোঁ মহিলাসকলক যে যদি আপুনি ডমেষ্টিক ভাইলেঞ্চ ফেচ কৰে বা এনে ধৰণৰ ভাইলেঞ্চ ফেচ কৰে তেতিয়া আপুনি কাৰ ওচৰত সহায় বিচাৰি যাব। বেছিভাগ মহিলাই তেতিয়া কৈছিল যে আমি কাৰো ওচৰত সহায় বিচাৰি নাযাওঁ, কাৰণ আমি ক'তো সহায় নাপাওঁ, কোনেও আমাক সহায় নকৰে, গৈ কি লাভ হ'ব। এইটো আছিলে more than 80% women, I think, said that. In the report, it's there. Food and income insecurities, we are seeing that more women informal workers have lost jobs. First people to go are women, because তেওঁলোকৰ কাম ইমান important বুলি ভাবা নহয়। Domestic workers, 90% domestic workers কৈছে যে লকডাউনৰ সময়ত তেওঁলোকে salary পোৱা নাই, আৰু about more than 80% domestic workers কৈছে তেওঁলোকে কামলৈ ঘূৰি যাব পৰা নাই। আৰু domestic workers form the largest workforce of women. Women যিমান শ্ৰমিক আছে তাৰ ভিতৰত domestic workerer নাম্বাৰটো সবতকৈ বেছি, তেওঁলোকে বেছিভাগে domestic workers হিচাপে কাম কৰে, so they have lost jobs. And food insecurity, more women are more likely to go without food when there is a scarcity, and these women were sharing that women are responsible for providing nutrition. That agote koisu je teluke nijor bahireo teluke belegot khadar aru khua okol saul kita paise karone bhat kita boil kori dile nohobo, de tar logot ki khabo lagibo etu karone teluke ulai go byabostha koribo lage. 80.70, I do Homer survey to 80.73% women reported that they are facing shortage of food. তেওঁলোকৰ ওচৰত খাদ্য নাই, enough পৰ্যাপ্ত পৰিমাণে খাদ্য নাই। আৰু 2.08% মাত্ৰ কৈছিলে যে তেওঁলোকে ডাইৰেক্ট ৰেশন বেনিফিট গভৰ্ণমেণ্টৰ পৰা পাইছিলে সেইখিনি সময়ত। আৰু 47.39% মহিলাই কৈছিলে যে NGO বা বেলেগ কোনোবা ওচৰৰ কমিউনিটি মানুহে দিয়াৰ পৰা তেওঁলোকে খাদ্য সামগ্ৰী পাইছিলে। And then we come to healthcare concerns, that বেছিভাগ মহিলাই এইখিনি সময়ত হেলথ যেহেতু জেনাৰেল হেলথ কেয়াৰ has taken a back seat, মানুহে কৰোনাৰ কাৰণে যাবলৈ পৰা নাই। আৰু মহিলাসকলৰ ক্ষেত্ৰত আমি দেখা পাওঁ যে in most cases মহিলাসকলে actually reproductive pregnancy সময়ত বা related to their abortionৰ কাৰণে, these are the only for many women these are the only times that they go to a doctor or a hospital, to the healthcare system. আৰু লকডাউনৰ সময়ত আৰু এতিয়াও আনকি ongoing pandemicৰ কাৰণে they are not being able to access this healthcare. Women's health is not getting priority due to economic stress. ঘৰত যেহেতু বেছিভাগৰে economic stress আছে, so women are they are all saying that এতিয়া আৰু ক'ত ডক্টৰৰ ওচৰত যাম। ট্ৰান্স পিপল, আমি যেতিয়া নন বাইনাৰী মানুহৰ কথা কৈছিলোঁ যে বহুত মানুহ আছে ট্ৰান্স পিপল, যোন ৰূপান্তৰকামী মানুহ, তেওঁলোকে they go through a hormone therapy to achieve the change that they want, and this is something that এবছৰ দুবছৰৰ কাৰণে continuously তেওঁলোকে মেডিচিন খাব লাগে। আৰু তেওঁলোকে বহুত ট্ৰান্স মানুহে ৰিপৰ্ট কৰিছিল যে তেওঁলোকে মেডিচিন পোৱাও নাই, আৰু this is kind of an expensive therapy, so তেওঁলোকে এফৰ্ড কৰিব পৰা নাই সেই মেডিচিন। women with disabilities or লগত আমি কথা পাতিছিলোঁ, women with disability তেতিয়া কৈছিলে যে তেওঁলোকেও বহুতে মেণ্টেল ইলনেছ থকাৰ কাৰণে বা গাৰ বিষৰ কাৰণে বা যিকোনো বেলেগ বেলেগ ডিজেবিলিটি ৰিলেটেড ইছ্যুজৰ কাৰণে তেওঁলোকে ৰেগুলাৰ মেডিচিন খাব লাগে, যোন মেডিচিনখিনি তেওঁলোকে হয় কিনিব পৰা নাছিল, নহ'লে বা তেওঁলোকৰ ঘৰত এনাফ পইচা নাছিল। And there has been an reporting of increase in mental health issues amongst women and non-binary people. বহুত ৰিপৰ্ট ওলাইছে সেইখিনি লৈ কিনে। Then so this was my আমি 42.5% হাউচহোল্ডে কৈছিলে যে তেওঁলোকৰ ঘৰত ক্ৰনিক ইলনেছ আছে, কিবা নহয় কিবা কণ্ডিশ্যনছ, হেল্থ কেয়াৰ যোনটো দৰকাৰ হয় তেনেকুৱা আছে। তেওঁলোকে কৈছিলে ৰিপ্ৰডাক্টিভ আৰু মেনষ্ট্ৰুৱেল হেল্থ এইবিলাকৰ কাৰণে তেওঁলোকে সহায় পোৱা নাই, তেওঁলোকে হেল্থ কেয়াৰ চিষ্টেমত যাব পৰা নাই। ডিজেবল উইমেনেও কৰিছিলে। বহুতে কৈছিলে যে তেওঁলোকৰ ওচৰত এনাফ ফাণ্ড নাছিলে টু এক্সেছ হেল্থ কেয়াৰ। not having access to entertainments and response programs je bahut manuhar bahut besibag maiki manu aru non binary manuhar mohila aru non binary manuhar ami dekha paisu je teolukor ration card nai bank account nai junbilak karonot junkhini welfare programs government or pra announce kora welfare programs bilaku teoluke puwa nai tar pisote je relief diuteo besibag homoyote junbilak single women when I'm talking about women, I'm particularly talking about single women here. Single women, widow hobo pare, bidhoba hobo pare, gireke eri thoi dua hobo pare, ketiao biya nopata enuka mohila hobo pare. Mohila hokol hodai teoluke hekhot mane pai ba bahut homoy teoluk thaki jay. Teolukok count nokore karon head of the household hisabe purush hokolok count kore. আৰু also that response programs bilak ketiao teolukor need bilak jeneke bahut response programot mohila hokole je khub joruri teolukor sanitary napkins ba contraceptive pills eniko dhonor bostu bilak ketiao response programor pra teoluke মানে বেছিভাগ ৰেসপন্স প্ৰগ্ৰামে এইবিলাক তেওঁলোকৰ যোনখিনি দৰকাৰ তেওঁলোকৰ যি সেইখিনি প্ৰয়োজন যোনখিনি তেওঁলোকৰ সেইখিনি এড্ৰেছ নকৰে মানে প্ৰয়োজন পূৰ্ণ নাই education and information আমি দেখিছো যে বহুত adolescent girls আমি বিশেষকৈ আমি যোনখিনি vulnerable area কাম কৰো drop out very high early marriage is also very common তাতে তেওঁলোকে বহুত adolescent girls হে 9 10 11 12 পঢ়া ছোৱালী বিলাকে কৈ আছিল যে they are not sure if they will go back to school যেতিয়া স্কুল খুলিব ঘৰৰ মানুহে অলৰেডি তেওঁলোকৰ বিয়া চিয়াৰ কথা পাতি আছে মানে they are not sure অলৰেডি তেওঁলোকে বহুত যুদ্ধ কৰি মানে স্কুললৈ গৈ থাকিবলগীয়া হৈছিল আৰু যে তেওঁলোকে কন্টিনিউ কৰিব পাৰিব that they had doubt about less girls have online education access to online education etu moi mur nijor ঘৰত মানে উচৰ পাজৰে দেখি আছো লৰা এটা আছে ছোৱালী এজনী আছে এটাই ফোন আছে ফ্যামিলিত তো এই কাঢ়া কাঢ়িৰ মাজত ফোনটো লৈ পিনে যেতিয়া হয় সদায় লৰাটোৱে প্ৰায়োৰিটি পায় আৰু বিশেষকৈ লৰাবিলাকৰ ওচৰত ফোনো থাকে স্মাৰ্টফোন এটা দুটা বাচ্চাকে যদি ফোন দিছে তথাপিও স্মাৰ্টফোনটো লৰাটোৰ ওচৰত থাকিব আৰু এটা নন স্মাৰ্টফোন ছোৱালীজনীৰ হাতত থাকিব এনেকুৱাও দেখা পাইছো মই and this has also been reported less women have access to information and technology like phones etu hoye je besibak mohilare phone na thake ami mohila kinik bikheko jodi sao loratur hatot phone thake ami phone koru jetia amar community kam kori thaka baido hokolor jetia loratue kobo ma etia potharat kam kori ase moi goi pale phone korbo kom baru enekwa so this is very common absent in decision making and policy formulation je etia loke jiman response buli koi pine jiman bilak program hatot loise তাতে কোটুৱে উইমেনৰ কাৰণে স্পেসিফিক পলিচিও কোৱা নাই স্পেসিফিক প্ৰগ্ৰামো উইমেনৰ কাৰণে কোৱা নাই উইমেনৰ কনসাৰ্নস কোটো মেনশন কৰা নাই তেওঁলোকৰ লগত কোটো ডিসকাস কৰা নাই জেন্ডাৰ সেগ্ৰিগেটেড ডেটা নাই আৰু জেন্ডাৰ স্পেসিফিক কোনো পলিচিজ নাই so the jury do I have time it's okay
yeah it's
okay khorke koisu neki
na apni kobo pare hikobo pare
hello I can't hear you
শুনা পাইছে আপুনি কব পাৰে কন্টিনিউ কৰিব পাৰে hello you can continue
anyway I'll continue jodi mu khuna paisa ne you can
yes.
Can you hear me
okay. yes
so more let me just continue tar pisote we will try আমি যোনটো recommended actions কি কৰিব লাগিব so prothome ami koisu je this kind of documentations ami jeneke korisu heneke locally we should document we should see the gender specific ki hoy ase we need to create gender specific data we need to document women's experience we need to document non binary people's experiences tar pisote ami koisu je have public campaigns to highlight issues like violence and non payment of salaries etc যে ইমান যে ডোমেস্টিক ওয়ার্কারক স্যালারি দিয়া নাই 90% ডোমেস্টিক ওয়ার্কার স্যালারি পোৱা নাই these are mostly common public who have not domestic workers or employers most employers so we need to understand if they are having problems then they also need to share but we need to have a public awareness and discussions on these issues we need to have public awareness on violence mental health issues and decision making or policy formulation of women and non-binary people include them invite them ask them what their issues are gender specific program or budget age etia enregat kiman 50,000 crore ne kiman 2 লাখ কৰোৰ টকা অমুকত দিম 2,000 কোটি লাখ টকা অমুকত দিম এনেকৈ যে কৈ থাকে so in those please be specific kuntu mohilar kuntu proyojon mohila ba non binary kuntu proyojon puraboloi how much money you are going to what will be the program how much money you are going to spend okay sir so we're saying that ask and include aru tar pisote ami jutu specific recommendations this has been taken from moi jutu feminist network etar logot jorito at the global level or also at the Asia Pacific level called Asia Pacific Forum on Women Law and Development তেওঁলোকে 200ৰো অধিক মহিলাৰ অধিকাৰ লৈ পিনে কাম কৰা মহিলা এণ্ড নন বাইনাৰী পিপলৰ অধিকাৰ লৈ পিনে কাম কৰা ফেমিনিষ্ট অৰ্গেনাইজেশ্যনছ ফ্ৰম দ্য এণ্টায়াৰ এছিয়া পেচিফিক ৰিজনৰ লগত কাম কৰে আৰু everybody has been sending their recommendations sending their evidence data কি হৈ আছে আৰু তাৰ ওপৰত বেছ কৰি পিনে what should be the response আমি globally আমি কি বিচাৰো at the policy level এনেকুৱা যে prioritize protection and decent work for health emergencies and emergency services workers so কৈ আছে যে তেওঁলোকক যোনখিনি nurse cleaner caregiver including all emergency service workers যোনখিনি আছে তেওঁলোকৰ protectionৰ কাৰণে and তেওঁলোকৰ বেছিভাগে informal and they don't have adequate workers right labor rights protection তেওঁলোকৰ নাই working hours decent salary decent wage living wage a issues bilak ani pine we should address their income and work situation so and increase public health workforce je amak we need public health not the private the private sector has failed private sector education private sector healthcare has failed all of us has failed completely we can see that in this situation so we need to increase public health workforce we need to all government should provide universal free access to health treatment and also pharmaceuticals এই যে ভ্যাকসিনৰ কথা কৈ আছে দৰবৰ কথা কৈ আছে this cannot be at the if we keep it exclusive if we keep it expensive then বেছিভাগ মানুহে will not get benefit from it so we need to have regulations government policies jo treatment and vaccine etc will be pharmaceuticals will be there will be regulations pharmaceuticals will have to provide jiman dur pare we actually want it to be free but if not then it has to be accessible nationalize private health and services required for the crisis to sustain future livelihoods mane je health care system to nationalize kori pine borhai pine tar jodi health care workforce to borhua hoy already people will find livelihood there already we will have a universal public health care system and already we will be able to address the crisis also আৰু আমি কৈ আছো যে যিমান ওয়াৰ্কাৰ্স বিলাকক ওয়েজ গ্যাৰান্টি দিব লাগে যোন বিলাক ওয়াৰ্কাৰ্স কাম নোহোৱা হৈছে বা কাম বন্ধ হৈ আছে তেওঁলোকক ওয়েজ গ্যাৰান্টি দিব লাগে আমি ইউনিভাৰ্সাল বেসিক ইনকামৰ কথা কৈ আছো যে at this point Professor Sinha কৈছিল যে redistribution of wealth and that can only be done through taxation you tax the people who have more and you give it to people who don't have this is the very basic economic sense this is the only way the economy will survive this is the only way the society will survive but we don't see that political will somebody kunuba eta proshno khudi asil je what is the way forward ami keneke korim is it possible so is it possible to do yes it is possible all it needs is the political will government instead of saying ami iman paisa uthai pine omukor pra bostu kinim like just stop this business and think about welfare of the humanity we need to save people we need to save this planet so it is possible but we need to be clear on ami ki bisari asu government ok ami kobo lagibo more demands that we get we put forward more clear we are on what we are suggesting we hope we will be able to see some action আমি কৈ আছো যে মাইগ্ৰেন্টস যোনবিলাক গভৰ্নমেণ্ট ৰেসপন্সত মাইগ্ৰেন্ট ওয়াৰ্কাৰ্স আৰু লেবাৰ মাইগ্ৰেশনৰ যোনবিলাক ইস্যুজ আছে প্ৰবলেম আছে কিয় মানুহে যায় এতিয়া কিয় ঘূৰি যাব বিচৰা নাই ঘূৰি আহিলে তেওঁলোকে কি কৰিব এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ ইয়াবিলাকত গভৰ্নমেণ্ট ৰেসপন্সত সোমাব লাগিব আৰু লোকাল ফুড সিস্টেমস যে ফুড সাস্টেইনেবিলিটি লোকালি কৰা বিকজ উই ক্যান নো লংগাৰ এতিয়া আমি দেখি আছো আজি 3 দিনৰ যোৱাকালি গধূলিৰ পৰা অৰ was it day before yesterday গুৱাহাটীৰ ফাঁচী বজাৰ লকডাউন হোৱাৰ কাৰণে ফাঁচী বজাৰত কেছ বেছি হোৱাৰ কাৰণে ফাঁচী বজাৰ had to be declared containment zone আৰু হেতু কাৰণে গুৱাহাটীৰ বজাৰ বিলাকত এতিয়া পাচলি নোহোৱা হৈছে So obviously this system is not working very well because this is such a centralized system. Jod eke, bahiror pra bostu ahe aru ami kini kini khao. And the same thing will be etia Ohomor ami jodi food grain or here sound besibag food grain comes from outside Punjab Haryana pra ahe. Jodi kiba karonot contain koribologia hoy, jodi kiba karonot transport bondho hoy. Even there is supposedly there was a report that here hobo hetu there is a possibility of that as well karon diesel or price bohar karone truckers bilake strike kori ase. So if these things happen, then our solution to what will be the solution, that we will have to think of sustaining ourselves locally. So we are making all this. Also that the feminists have been, Professor Sinha, women economists or kotha koi asile, and the feminists have been really engaging with this economic system. Trade or ki hoya say, we don't talk about the trade and how trades impact us. So as feminists, we have been saying that ki kori ase je বেছিভাগ ট্ৰেড এগ্ৰিমেণ্টত পেটেণ্ট মানে এখন দেশে এটা বস্তু বনাব তাৰ পেটেণ্ট মেডিচিনৰ পেটেণ্টৰ কাৰণে লাগিয়ে থাকে কণ্টিনিউৱাছ লিগেল বেটেলছ চলি থাকে ইণ্ডিয়াৰ নিচিনা দেশক বনাব নিদিয়ে মেডিচিন আমেৰিকা ডাজন্ট ৱান্ট দ্যাট ইণ্ডিয়া সস্তাত মেডিচিন বনাওক সো দিজ ৱাৰ্ছ আৰ গোয়িং অন কণ্টিনিউৱাছলি So we are saying that aru ekhini homoyte lockdown or homoyte WTO and then there are other bilateral multilateral trade agreements jot ekhini homoyat jehetu belek kuneo civil society monitor koribo nware teoluke enekwa dhoroner trade agreement kori ase jot manuhor khoti hobo aru beshi. So we are saying that stop these discussions now. You can't have trade agreements at this point. So aru koesu je into global debt payment ase into je this because of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and this whole global system of heya je ami koru desh bilake supposedly amar pura wealth loi goi pine supposedly they have given us loans. Everybody takes World Bank loan, everybody takes IMF loan, aru bahut interest di pine hebilak paisa ghurai thakibo lage, so we can never develop, we can never have resources on our own. So we are saying that a debt bill cancel kori diya. We are not going to pay back any debt to anyone anymore. We have already provided enough cheap labor. We have already given them enough of our resources, natural resources. The debt cancel koribo lage. Aru je a technology like so participatory mechanisms hobo lage. Aru and then that like it has to be based on protecting human rights and democracy and democratic institutions. So sorry, I took a little more time and I also had to speak very fast. Prashna, doubt, anything, you can put it forward to me.
Thank you, Banaba. Am I audible? Mo shuna paise? Hello? Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So thank you, Banaba, for enlightening us on the issues related with gender and women. Apuni shuna paise, Banaba?
Okay, sorry, Judy, I can't hear, so I'm going to just log out for a minute. You can continue. Moi ako log in korim to check if there is anything wrong with my.
Okay, sure. Vasuti, shuna paisa ne?
Hunisu?
Okay. Maybe it is a technical problem. Yeah.
Mm.
So let's wait for at least 2 minutes so that she can join us again.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. এতিয়া শুনা পাইছে সকলোৱে? Okay. So thank you, Banaba, for speaking on the issues related to gender and women, and especially how women are affected, not only women, but the binary transgender people who are affected during this lockdown. And this is a wonderful, information from your study from the grassroots level. So where we have found some kind of data where the issues like mental health, care work burden, etc. have been, initiated and discussed broadly, because you know, during this pandemic situation, we usually ignore the issues which are related to women or to the transgender people. So we have two questions. Should I speak on these questions, or I mean, then you can reply
I
it?
will,
Okay, you can read it. Yeah.
yeah, I can. Oh, okay, okay. What
Okay.
would be the probable suggestions to minimize gender inequality exacerbated by the pandemic? Okay. So the suggestion is this, that one is to include and understand women and their need, you know, how they are being impacted. Let us argue that different women will be impacted differently. In urban areas, women will be impacted differently. In rural areas, differently. Women, domestic workers differently, you know, farmers differently. So we need to first step is to understand, we need to ask the women what is happening with them. And secondly, that the what is happening with them, what are their experiences, what are the barriers, you know, in accessing things that they're facing. And then we will need to invest in removing these barriers. মানে যেনেকে যদি সৰু কথা এটা যে বেছিভাগ women they don't have ration cards in their names. They don't have ration cards in their names, and so they can't access যোনবিলাক food security program আছে সেইখিনি তেওঁলোকে they cannot access. So ration card তেওঁলোকৰ নহয় বেছিভাগ ক্ষেত্ৰতে, কাৰণ তেওঁলোকৰ এড্ৰেছ প্ৰুফ বিলাকৰ বিৰাট প্ৰব্লেম হয়, তেওঁলোকৰ নামত মাটি বাৰী নাথাকে, they shift house, you know, এইটো মাকৰ ঘৰৰ পৰা দেউতাকৰ ঘৰলৈ যাবলগীয়া হয়, দে চেঞ্জ টাইটেলছ, ইউ ন', চ' বহুত কথা সাৰনেমছ এইবিলাক কিবা কিবি হৈ থাকে. So in which case do we recognize this, that this is a problem women face? Women have been saying this for a long time. So the government now has to say that if you are a woman, you know, if you are a single woman, then you cannot provide a matibari kagos dibo nware, umuk dibo nware, etu dibo nware, then it is enough that you provide this kagos. But why do you need even a kagos, you know? That apni you are a single woman, and I know that, and you will get, anyone will get a ration card, you know, 5 kg saul paboloi karone mahekot how many you know, documents does one need to provide, huh? Similarly, you know, jodi gender you know, violence or issues ho ase, the violence or issues, we really need to do public awareness. Men need to get involved, you know, and also that junbilak manuhe respond koribo lage police or here, we all have to become aware, you know, violence or khetrat. You know, with every specific issue women are facing, there will be, if we are willing to listen what the problem is, and then we are trying to address it, then there will be solutions will also be local. So I mean, local, instead of thinking that ekeloge ami dangor koi ekhon ain khon ami photokko change kori dibo lagibo, ba ekeloge ami ekebare national level kiba eta policy anibo lagibo, tenukwa nohoy. We can do locally, we can bring in changes depending on what is the condition. Aruki asile this what would be the role of academic administrator in this pandemic period to our society? The very interesting question. Thank you. Mane I don't know if I told jury this, kintu thank you. Mur aji yate moi kotha patibole agree korisilu ekmatro etu karonote je moi janu yate bahut students thakibo, and I think that there is a possibility that teoluke you know, কথাখিনি আগুৱাই লৈ যাব পাৰিব, নিজৰ কমিউনিটিত কাম কৰিব লাগিব, বেয়া নাপাব। ফ্ৰেঙ্কলি স্পিকিং বিশেষকৈ অসমত, ইভেন অসমত একাডেমিয়া হেজ বিন এ ডিসএপইন্টমেন্ট। বহুত মানুহে বহুত কথা কৈ থাকে, একো একশন নলয়। তেওঁলোকে পলিচি লেভেলত বহুত ইনপুটস দিব পাৰে, বহুত ৰিসাৰ্চ, বহুত ডকুমেন্টেশন কৰিব পাৰে। এইখিনি স্কিল, এইখিনি এক্সপাৰ্টিজ, এইখিনি ৰিসোর্সেস একাডেমিয়াৰ ওচৰত আছে, বাট উই ডু নট সি এনি you know, here মানে তেওঁলোকৰ পৰা ফালৰ পৰা এটা এফৰ্ট, you know, একাডেমিয়াৰ এফৰ্টটো সদায় ডাঙৰ ডাঙৰ থিওৰি, কোনোবা বাহিৰৰ কনফাৰেন্স, you know, we are not inward looking. locally কি হৈ আছে, ইভেন যদি এখন গাঁৱৰ এখন কলেজে যদি নিজৰ ষ্টুডেন্টছ খিনিৰ লগত কথা পাতি পিনেও বা নিজে থকা সেই অঞ্চলটোৰ লগত কথা পাতি পিনেও যদি তেওঁলোকে ডকুমেন্ট কৰি দিয়ে what is happening with people, policy ki impact hoy ase, and they put it forward to the policy people, you know, as part of their seminars je kore, apunaloke meeting je kore, hebilakot jodi hoy, you know, this is going to be a big help to people who are working on the ground. So I think this is what can be done instead of just having a lot of discussion among ourselves আৰু কোনে কিমান ডাঙৰ ডাঙৰ কথা ক'ব পাৰে আৰু কিতাপ পঢ়িছে আৰু সেইবিলাকৰ কাৰণে I mean go on do that I don't have any problem with that but I think it has to have some sort of an ইয়াৰ পিছত আমি আগুৱাই লৈ যাব পাৰা এই চেঞ্জ যোনটো কৈ আছিলে যে আমি কি কৰিব পাৰো এটা ৰোল কি হ'ব that this is something I have in mind what would be the probable suggestions to minimize etu moi kolu aru ঠিক আছে কোনবাই thank you কৈছে মই thank you কৈছো this is কৰিব লাগিব COVID-19 is we are surviving to living for savior have highlighted so many data and how it possible moi sorry বুজি পোৱা নাই মানে we are surviving to live মানে আমি যে কোনোমতে নিজৰ সেভিংস এৰে বাচি আছো
maybe
is that what and then how do we pay people
maybe হেতুৱে বুজাব বিচাৰিছে সুধিব
বিচাৰিছে ঠিক আছে মানে এটো কৈ আছো যে in all of this আমি সবে মানে আমি যদি this is the thing that we must recognize that system has failed us you know this system is a failure এটো বস্তু আমি বুজি পাব লাগিব এতিয়া আমি সবে যোনটো কৰিব লাগিব as community you know community building is the main thing আৰু এই community টো বহুত ডাঙৰ হ'ব না লাগে মই আৰু মোৰ ওচৰে পাজৰে যিমানখিনি মোৰ লগত জড়িত যিমানখিনি মানুহ আছে মই ডাইৰেক্ট কানেকচনত থকা হিমানখিনি মানুহৰ লগতো we need to take so you know we need to take account of আমাৰ resources কি আছে হেতু পয়সা ৰিসোর্স হ'ব পাৰে হেতু কাৰ স্কিল লেভেল কি আছে হেতু হ'ব পাৰে আৰু যে হেতু আমি শেয়াৰ কেনেকে কৰিব পাৰো you know hetu ami share keneke koribo paru ami we will have to think in a new direction je ami community bonam kenekoi ami manuhor logot connect kori asu kenekoi poisar kotha domestic worker pay korar kotha tu I'm just assuming you know this is also about that so domestic worker khetrot mane bahut manuhe amar poisa nai etia keneke kotha tu hol je let's prioritize ha ami poisa nai karone ami kuntu kaam ami still continue kori asu aru kuntu kaam ami bhabi asu je important nohoy ha we are still continuing doing we all consume we all eat a lot more than we need to move to Facebook ekbare khanar heya di bhorti hoy ase I'm not saying koribo na lage but I'm saying you know we need to ami kiman bostu kinu petrolor dam bahi goise are we thinking of not using our you know personal vehicle so there you know, ebilak these are how is it possible boli kole moi etu kobo bisarisu je individually also it is possible that it can start from an individual and besides we all need to take care and we also need to make the government accountable although you know that and we need to make suggestions the universal basic income or kotha juntu koi asu ekhini muhurtot manuhor hatot jodi income dia nohoy aru that income cannot be a typical mane kaam kori de etia paisa pabi aru which is also not minimum wage enekwa korile ekhini homoy kintu we will not be able to see through this phase at all what you know there is dark time ahead of us so ami universal basic income or demand koribo paru ami kobo paru that this needs to be taxation or kothat ami mat patibo paru we can say that yes we need this taxation you know which people of tax koribo lage so you know there are various things you can do aru kiba thakil lege juri
yeah there's a question from Akashi Borua is there any data about domestic violence
yeah so domestic violence or data amar study juntu ulaisile moi je kolu je it didn't show our study data didn't show very much domestic violence we have decided that we will need to mane domestic violence or bostu to enekwa because it is such a sensitive topic ami agote kaam koruteo it needs counseling so we will now have to document in a counseling way amar usor kiman cases ahi ase you know how many cases we are going kisuman organization june I think breakthrough boli eta organization ase they have come up with some data Indian cities or pora kisuman here marital rape or to I marital rape is not recognized or not reported so you know these are very sensitive issues we will need to see but if one wants to work on these and bring out data it will be good domestic violence or data ami ete document kori asu and then hopefully in the next 2-3 months I mean we will be able to you know release some data on specifically on domestic violence
There's another question from Pranjal Pratim Borua is there any specific policy formulation for the non-binary people as they may be overshadowed by the larger debate of gender, which is categorically trapped in the binary of men and women.
Yeah, I mean, not in a COVID response or too, I haven't seen any categorical policy formulation, but transgender rights bill is there. You know, now it's an act. Transgender right act is there, but you know that there has been problem with the transgender rights act. Transgender people have been opposing this act. There has been because tate transgender act bill main problem to hoise that the state will identify or decide whether you are a transgender person or not. And it's not, you cannot say once I say that I am a transgender person, then there are certain categories or examinations or tests through which the state will then decide. And we're saying that identity is something of mine. I will identify myself. So the act itself is problematic. But তাতে তেওঁলোকে ট্ৰান্সজেন্ডাৰ ৱেলফেয়াৰ বৰ্ড এখন পাতাৰ কথা কৈছে, য'ত ট্ৰান্সজেন্ডাৰ মানুহে ছ'চিয়েল ছিকিউৰিটি প্ৰগ্ৰেমছবিলাকক তেওঁলোকক ইনক্লুড কৰা হ'ব, ট্ৰান্সজেন্ডাৰ মানুহৰ এমপ্লয়মেণ্ট অৰ তেওঁলোকৰ ৰাইটছ ভাইলেশ্যনছবিলাক এড্ৰেছ কৰিব, এনেকৈ ধৰণে দ্য এক্ট ইজ দেৰ। ইট হেজ জাষ্ট পাছ কৰিছেহে, চ' এতিয়ালৈকেতো বিশেষ কাম হোৱা নাই। But in Indian policy, that is the only act which is there. COVID response or a specific policy from the government side, we have not seen. But I could be wrong. I don't think so, actually. Nice, I guess.
Okay. Banaba, I have a question for you.
Yes, please.
Apnalokor study to, have you ever noticed any differences between women from village during lockdown and women from a city or from Guwahati or any other city like that? মানে গাঁৱৰ মহিলা আৰু চহৰৰ মহিলাৰ মাজৰ এই সিচুৱেশনটো কিবা ভেৰিয়েশন দেখা পাইছিলে নেকি?
ভেৰিয়েশন মানে আছিলে বহুতখিনিয়ে একেটো এনে মানে ইয়াত হৈছিলে যে গাঁৱৰ মহিলাখিনি ৱৰ ইনিচিয়েল পিৰিয়ডত উই হেভ বিন টকিং টু দ্য উইমেন, অকল এইটো ষ্টাডি কৰি শেষ নহয়, বিকজ উই ৱৰ্ক উইথ দেম। ত' ইনিচিয়েল পিৰিয়ডত যোনটো হৈছিলে গাঁৱৰ মহিলাখিনিৰ ফুড ক্ৰাইচিছটো ইমান হোৱা নাছিলে। They had food and they were also able to শাক পাত কচু কঁঠাল, there were these things, they had access to this kind of a free due to forage kori pine amar rural communities had that access, whereas in rural areas women did not have that. So there was an immediate food crisis in rural areas amongst the poor populations. Juntu karone ami rural area prothomate we had to get into ami juntu response work ration dia kam to ami koribo logia hol, because so many people were in food crisis mane hekini hoboy. But slowly as time passed, jehetu kam nohua hol aru bazar sojar bondho hoi gol, so rural areas to ami heya dekha palu, food crisis dekha palu. আৰু বাকি কিছুমান সিচুৱেশন ইন্টাৰনেট এক্সেছৰ হেয়াটো একচুৱেলি এমংছ দ্য পুৱাৰ হেয়া নাছিলে বহুত কি কয়, amongst the poor there were not much difference, but economic crisis I feel is more severe in the urban population, because তেওঁলোকে মানে এয়াও কৰিব লাগে, এই ভাড়া ঘৰত থাকে, they have to pay rent, so their expenses are much higher. So because of which it was immediate, they had a housing crisis, so many people had to shift houses, বহুত মানুহ গুচি গ'ল, যোনটো কাৰণে আমি মাইগ্ৰেণ্ট ক্ৰাইচিছটো দেখা পালোঁ। যে বহুত মানুহে গুচি যাবলগীয়া হ'ল, ঘৰলৈ গ'ল, গাঁৱলৈ গ'ল, এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ সেয়াবিলাক। So we saw that.
Okay. So yeah.
ঠিক আছে, মই the findings report to my jury, I have sent it to you already, and I think I can also post it here on the chat. I'm just trying to do that.
Or otherwise we can mail from
Judy, if you have
yeah,
if you have the mail thing, share kori dile. And if again Judy apnaloke anyone wants to have a discussion or questions, or want to take up a study or something, and keneke ami kiba koribo paru, if somebody is willing to give time at this point to document and support our work, most welcome.
I think you can write down your email ID here.
Yeah,
I mean, that chat box. So yeah, they can contact you directly.
Our organization to my website to register, you will find it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yate ami head korune banaba.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you everyone who have participated in the two sessions, in these two sessions, and these sessions are really informative and enlightening us in different concepts, not only in geography but also in other interdisciplinary perspectives. So first, I want to thank our principal ma'am to give us the permission to organize the webinar. To our HOD, my sincere gratitude to our HOD Pahari Dole, who have helped us a lot during this entire progress and everything that we are doing in a teamwork. Thank you, my colleague Fashati. I think all of are hearing me. Am I audible? Yes. Okay. And thank you, Vikas Tika, for helping us in technical perspectives. So thank you, participants. We are meeting tomorrow again at the same time at 3 p.m. We have another two sessions. Two speakers, one from economics background and another one is from environment background, who will give lectures on how economy and environment are related to or impact to this pandemic situation. So here I am ending this program for today. I hope all of you will join us tomorrow. Thank you.